Right, many thanks for staying with us tonight on the round table. And on this second part of the show, I now want to introduce to you the amazing panel that we have on the show tonight. I'll start on my immediate left. We have Consolata Nkatha Maina, who is the Vice Chairperson of the IEBC. Many thanks for joining us. We also have Joy Mdivo, who's a lawyer. Thank you, Joy. And Javas Bigambo, governance expert. We have again now joining us on set is Joyce Ekwam, who has just demonstrated to us that a simulation of the voting process. So many thanks for joining us tonight, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much.
So let's begin with what is the one thing that is different about this election that IEBC can assure Kenyans when they wake up a day after 8th of August, that this was a very credible process?
I think on the 12th day to the general election, which is on the 8th of August, our focus has been on the result transmission, which is going to be electronic, and also the announcement of the presidential results being final at the centers. Mm-hmm. What we are looking at is that we've got 290 constituencies. And at the centers, the polling centers, the announcement that is going to be made there is going to be final in terms of, and then from the polling centers, then is taken down to the constituencies, the 290 constituencies. Mm-hmm. That is going to be different from what there was before.
Right.
Then from constituencies, then we have the National Tallying Center. Mm-hmm. So what we're doing right now is working on that. I'm sure it's just been announced that the presidential elections, the way they are going to be done,
right,
is that they'll be announced once from the 290 constituencies. And that is the difference from the last election.
And the question has arisen out of that for all the benefits that would come with that final announcement being done at constituency levels. Then in the case where there's error, what does this mean?
Well, Sharon, it is legal. Mm-hmm. That it's going to be final, wherever it's going to be announced. I think the recourse will be maybe go to court at the end of it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Joy, are we looking at a possible scenario where we could possibly be dealing with a lot of legal repercussions coming out of the system?
Even from previous elections, Kenyans are very litigious these days, and we have seen even prior to us going to the elections, the number of cases that have already been filed. And one thing that I'm grateful for is that Kenyans now are coming alive to the fact that, you know what, the law tries to think about what are the possible problems and to try and recommend what are the possible outcomes. Mm-hmm. And so with all the cases that have already been filed, once we go to the polls, Kenyans have this habit of we don't lose elections, we somehow get snookered out of our win. Mm-hmm. So on that score, I see many people trying to discredit the process. However, we've had a lot of trainings as well. Even as advocates, today you saw Judge Msaga saying even the magistrates have been trained.
Right.
And the rules and the laws that are governing these elections mm-hmm. have been explained thoroughly to the law, the legal fraternity, the lawyers, mm-hmm. as well as the bench. And so the parameters are very high this time round. Mm-hmm. So I see a situation where people will be coming with instructions, but you'll find that there'll be no case.
Right.
So there will be plenty of attempts, mm-hmm. but I don't think that this time around, unless something is a blatant error, I don't see a lot of overturning of, like we saw last time, with so many by-elections coming out of it, no. But plenty of litigation, simply because it's everybody's right to go to court. That will be the case, yes.
All right. And Joyce, we just saw when we were doing the simulation that that electronic, getting of that voter identification. So in the sense that that does not work out, there is that complementary mechanism. Some argue that this could be a window for, people introducing people that are not meant to be there in the first place. Mm-hmm. Is this a weakness in the system?
No, the system is watertight. Mm-hmm. We've got the KIMS kits in place that is implanted with the register of voters per polling station. Mm-hmm. And we are saying that just in case the KIMS kit will not be able to work completely, we will be using the printed register. But as the exception, we'll be keeping it just there for use, just in case the KIMS kit fails completely. But remember that the KIMS kit will be used, and all voters will be required to be identified by fingerprint. biometrically, by fingerprint. And in case, because of one reason or another, the fingerprints are not readable by the KIMS kit, then we have other methods that will be used to identify the voters at the polling station. And one of those methods is use of ID card, where the ID card number will be keyed in into the KIMS kit to identify the voter. We could also use the KIMS kit. It has a camera implanted in it. We could also scan the number of the ID number or even the passport number. And once the voter is identified that way, by use of keying in the ID number or the passport number, then the voter's details pop out, which means that that voter has actually been identified through the KIMS kit and therefore shall be allowed to proceed to get the 6 ballot papers and go to vote.
All right.
Yeah.
And Javas, from where you sit as a governance expert, and in the way we have been doing and are doing the electioneering of this particular general election, what are we doing right? What is the IEBC doing right? What could be done better?
Well, first, the clarity of the simulation exercise that the country has watched tonight, a few minutes ago, is something that invites the election with so much peace of mind. However, in this country of ours, as it is across the African continent, the electioneering period and the election itself is always a period of cultivated anxieties. And we are, as a nation, by way of our tradition in our politics, a country riddled with cynicism. In fact, cynicism is our new religion.
Right.
However, I think we must also bring ourselves to an appreciation that time and again, nearly each election cycle up to now, we have seen tremendous and remarkable improvements by the managers of the election here. The institution that is the IEBC has demonstrated in a way that is impressive and remarkable that they are pulling up their socks and doing that which is remarkable to make sure that they oversee a very clear, transparent, and verifiable electoral process. Now, the thing is this. Even as this has been done, for example, reflecting on the simulation process that has just taken place a short while ago, question arises even as I sit here. What is it that can be done to make sure that the value of the vote is sustained, protected, and much more also to reduce the number of spoiled votes? Because over time, one thing that is interesting is that regardless of the kind of trainings and simulations that the institution that manages election conducts, there is always the challenge of lots of numbers, thousands of spoiled votes. So I think moving forward, it may be useful also to have the IEBC and all the team that works with it to see how, in the process of teaching individuals how to carry out their franchise, to see how they can reduce also the number of ballots that get to be spoiled or rejected upon the counting.
And is this something that you have been thinking about, the number or the quantity of spoiled votes that are witnessed every other time?
Yes, actually, we have voter educators who are in the field. We have about, 1,450, actually 2 per every ward. So that's a total of 2,900 educators all over. Plus, we are working with a number of organizations, civil society, and also there are so many people we are working with to educate the public about how do you vote. Because we realize the more spoiled voters we have, it's an issue. So this is one of the things that we really educate them. How do you vote? How do you mark? We've got these posters that we use to show them you have to mark inside. It should not, the line should not extend or should not go outside the box. So education is out there. And we rolled out this voter education last week. And I think even what you are doing this morning, the simulation that you saw, that's part of it. So we are starting to educate people on the ground. We've got a lot of advertisements that are going around. We're using print media, electronic media, people walking in the villages, using the chiefs and everyone. So we are out there educating people about how to do it right.
Some people are of the opinion that as we stand now, it is the politicians who are pretty much spearheading this, education process. Many of the voters, what they understand about the process is what they know from their politician. Is this true? And is there a way you can harness this kind of political influence to the advantage of what, or to reach what your goals would be in terms of civic education?
Actually, what voters are doing, what politicians are doing right now is campaign. And the campaign ends on the 5th of August at midnight. So what they are doing is just campaigning to get votes. And what IEBC is doing, together with all other interested, partners, is to educate on the education, on the voters' day, the real polling day. How do they go about it? So there's a big distinction between what the politicians are doing at the moment and what IEBC is doing. So basically, we are educating the voters on how to go about on that polling day. What is their expectations? What is our expectations? And then how do we transmit the results? Basically, and what do the Kenyans expect in general when it comes to the polling day?
All right. Joy, Java say as Kenyans we are very cynical. We like to look at the, worst side of things. Do you agree with this? Do you think enough has been done to really raise the integrity of our democratic electoral processes?
The problem with our elections is that we've made them very high stakes. The reason they're very high stakes is because we made leadership very lucrative. In fact, there's somebody who made a comment that if Sarah Sarem had made her announcement about the reduction in salaries, we wouldn't have had so many people going for the elected post.
She should have come a bit earlier.
Because some of them were actually going for it because they were thinking this is their ticket out of poverty. And now when we've gotten to a place, for example, if you look at the two presidential candidates, both of them, it's a fight for their political careers.
It's a do or die.
Uhuru Kenyatta does not want to go down as a president with just one term. And Raila Odinga, this is risasi moja. This is his last stab at the presidency.
Last bullets.
And I'm telling you, for both of them, it is do or die. Now, when you have got that level of the high-stakes nature of the election, it makes people be naturally very vigilant. Like you have seen, especially on the NASA side, they have been looking at every process and scrutinizing it all. And it's shown the soft underbelly of the IEBC, because every time they go to court and they get a success, it shows that there was somebody somewhere who was not advising the IEBC correctly. They thought maybe they were operating in the old regime where you could wake up and change the rules just a little bit for expediency. But they have demonstrated that, we want this thing played by the book. So it's one of those things where, yes, we have a lot of cynicism. And to add to that, even the spoiled votes, some of them are not spoiled because of ignorance. Is somebody actually protesting? I am spoiling my vote because I'm saying, all of you are completely not acceptable to me as candidates. So Kenyans are coming of age in terms of politics.
Right.
And we're learning to use our voice, not just on the ballot paper, but even now in the pre-election period. But one thing that I'm grateful for is that we are looking at the IEBC now, the way they're responding to this very positively, even with the punches that they've been receiving. Like when Chairman was hedging. A lot of those, when Chairman was hedging all his bets, he's doing public participation, he's filing the appeal, he's telling the other companies to start preparing to print. When you see that approach, you can tell people now are open-minded.
Right.
And I'm grateful that the democracy is being tested because, as Javas has pointed out, what we had with Kivuitu, Isaac Hassan improved on. What we had with Isaac Hassan, we are counting on Chebukati and Ms. Connie here and the others to actually improve on. So as a country, our cynicism might be diminishing, but it's still there.
Not so far away from that, because you talk about the high stakes and then how this reflects on everything. And how much are we then learning from other countries? I mean, we had a high-stake election in the USA last year. We were the world was on the verge of getting the first, female US president. But people move on like in a snap. Why is it so difficult for Kenyans to do that so far?
And that's the thing that Kenyans need to understand. These guys are applying for a job. When at the end of the day, if it doesn't happen, you see all of them after elections, they usually hibernate, go for a really long holiday, get a few massages, and they come back and they go on with their other interests. Kenyans need to understand, this is an event, but after the event, Kenya is still a going concern.
Right.
So you need to be aware. Our children have to be back in school by the 23rd of August. We have to prepare them for KCSE and KCPE. We have to look for a living because after elections, we have to pay fees for that August.
Right.
So each of us has to think beyond the 8th. And whether or not your candidate goes through, you have a life, you are a father, you are a mother. So if you think in that perspective, for young people, the politicians will not throw stones. It is we who will pick up the stones. It is we who will get tear gassed. So if you become a bit selfish and think, you know what, I've done my part, I have given you the job or I've denied you the job, and after that, let me go do my job.
Right.
Kenyans need to get there.
Right. And Joyce, Joy alluded to the many legal tussles that IEBC has really been involved in. How has this affected you as a team and especially in the conduct of your duty?
Yes, we are aware of the legal battles that have been thrown our way, and the good story is that we've surmounted those battles. The preparations have been on top gear, and we saw the delivery of the ballot papers just the other day, and some are also on their way. We are also expecting the presidential ballot papers in the country by 5th, and the trainings of the returning officers and the other election officials are going on, and therefore, with the preparations for the August 2017 general elections are on course. And as Joy said, we are really stronger than we began, and we are promising the country that there will be very credible election come 2017, the August 8th.
All right.
Allow me time to just make clear to Kenyans what we mean by spoiled ballot. A spoiled ballot is the one that is marked incorrectly but does not go into the ballot box. What goes into the ballot box, everything else that is not marked but found in the ballot box is called a rejected ballot. And that we need to make clear to Kenyans that once you discover that you've improperly marked your ballot, there is room to go for another ballot paper so that you return the one that is incorrectly marked before casting it into the ballot box, and therefore get another one, go mark it, and insert it into the corresponding ballot box. Right. So therefore, what goes inside there that is not well marked, we call it a rejected ballot.
Okay. Okay, that's clear. And Madam Consolata, technology was the biggest failure in the 2013 carrying out of the elections. What kind of assurances do we have to do with this now? Because technology is always prone to many kinds of manipulation, from hacking to whatnot. What kind of safeguards are you putting in place?
I think in terms of the use of KIMS, Kenya Kenya Integrated Electoral Management System. Right. We used it for registration, voter registration. It worked out very well. We used it for voter verification. That worked out very well. We've just finished also using it on nominations. We've done nominations with it. So now what is remaining is the voting day, where we are going to use it for identification. So we've seen that work very well. So we've got about 41,000 kits that are spread all over the country during that the election day. Right. But also what I want to say is that we've trained each and every person who is going to be using this. In 2013, I understand that the kits came just before. They actually never had to test them. They never had to deal with them. You know, when you feel something and work with it, you've got that experience. But this time, they have seen the kits, they have worked with the kits, they are going to use the kits, which means we are much prepared than we were in 2013. All right. Yes, and we also have a lot of support in terms of, we have ICT staff who are in every station. In case of anything, they'll be there. Also, let me say this. Apart from the one kit we'll have per polling station, in every center we'll have 2 extra kits just in case they break down. So we are very prepared in terms of, using electronic
technology and backup and all
technology and backup and everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Javas, history would have it that any time Kenyans are about to vote, when in the process of attempting to vote out a sitting president, that Kenya is seen to be getting into a period of instability. What is your assessment of the kind of period we are going at and the stakes that we really are at?
Well, as I sit here around this table tonight, looking at our electoral history in this country, our history has not been kind to us. And it leaves us with very bad taste in the mouth, especially whenever we've headed into an election with an incumbent. But it must not drive us to that brink of suspicion that every time there is an incumbent in office, that our country will be riddled by challenges of violence, and that even the results themselves will always be disputed. I think it is proper that we must mount ourselves on the chariot of integrity, carried by the wheels of confidence, trusting that an institution like the IEBC, prepared as they are, and I think it is impressive, the kind of confidence that is being exuded here tonight, that they are prepared for this. But much more than that, the biggest task here is the management of the aspirations of the politicians themselves. Because, of course, in the end, some of them who will have lost will have withdrawal syndromes and every other thing that comes with it. But, you see, the thing is here that a number of times politicians don't know how to manage and contain their own ambition. That some imagine, ridiculously so, that the gods have appointed them into whatever office, even if the people, going by the rules of democracy, have rejected. So it is important that right now, the biggest support to the IEBC must come from the people and the politicians. Because the kind of blows on the body of the institution of the IEBC that has been received has been mainly, done by the politicians. And it's proper that the politicians themselves do not cast aspersions on that body itself. Because they have gone out of there, and I think it's proper, what they've done, to demonstrate that actually they are doing everything for the greater good of our democracy and this country of ours. So this election, 2017, the year of our Lord, mine is the pleasant imagination that we will defy that bad history of our country, that whenever we head into an election with an incumbent, that the country will always be on the brink of the precipice or head into violence. And then much more than that, the issue or the standoff that has been there, which I think it's proper that must be castigated between, say, a section of the political parties or the political community and the IEBC and a minister of government, a tussle over a provision of law, for instance, that a number or access to the polling center is restricted to only individuals who are permitted, whether you are an agent or the polling officers, etc. The demand, therefore, by, say, a section of the politicians that they must have a number of representatives undetermined by the law, I think itself also heightens the kind of anxiety, especially in this election. And that's something that we as a nation must bring ourselves to a conversation that is very sober for the greater good of our nation.
And we have about a minute to wrap up the show. Time goes so fast. But I'd like to, just get your thoughts and final thoughts on this issue. What is the role of Kenyans as we prepare 12 days from now to the general election? Role in the sense of making sure they exercise their democratic rights, and also that, the process, credibility the IEBC has made their case for the credibility of the process. Then the peaceful part of it, as Kenyans, what is the role we have to play? And what is your parting shot as we finish this discussion?
One thing that I'd like to assure Kenyans, from my estimation, there is no cause for alarm. The cocktail that we had in 2007, the Molotov cocktail that we had in 2007, there was a lot of ethnic undertones prior to the elections. And we had two communities that were pitted against each other. That situation has been diffused. At that time, we were also dealing with an IEBC process that was a lot more opaque than we have now. That has been sorted out. We were dealing with a populace that was not as well informed. That has been sorted out as well. We were also dealing with political parties that had much less discipline. That has been sorted out with most of the electoral laws that we have now. And we have gotten to a place as a democracy where we can actually do this peacefully. And that's why I keep urging Kenyans. Our role in this is go cast your vote and go away. Even if you stay at the polling station to quote-unquote guard your vote, for what adventure? You don't have the tools to do that.
Thank you very much, Joy. I want to take that as your parting shot, and that's a very strong one, because we have just 10 seconds, and I want to allow the Vice Chair of IEBC to make her parting shot.
Well, we want just to assure Kenyans that IEBC is prepared for this election. and will give you a free, fair, and credible elections on the 8th of August.
All right.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That was a very useful and informative discussion that we had tonight.
Thank you so much.
So that's where we wrap up the edition of the Roundtable tonight. Many thanks. We hope that you have been informed and that you will vote not just wisely, but also upholding the peaceful process that is required of this particular election. I believe this is the last episode of the Roundtable before we get to the election. So I do wish you a good night. I was sitting in for my colleague, Asha Mwilu. Wish you all the best. Good night.